From there, moving into a space that I know that we share some commonality, because there's a sort of financial aspect to this and a creative aspect to it. The world of NFTs, and Budweiser, who's in this headline right now, is just the latest. Pretty much every week around here, the last few months, Colleen, we've got some sort of NFT story of how people are creating NFTs, how that's like Adobe has put it into their software itself as convert to NFT as an end output, and the implications on intellectual property and creativity going forward. So tell me your thoughts.
So first of all, as we've talked before, I'm fascinated by this idea of NFTs, and on I'm a Millionaire. So now what I've brought in some blockchain, cryptocurrency experts, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around it truly. I mean, I have art in my house, not what's behind me is just a canvas piece, but I have some original art in my house, painted by a local artist. And that I understand, art collecting, like the physical, but I am having a really hard time wrapping my head around the long-term value of something that is digital, that it can be easily copied, even though the NFT is about having the ownership. It's hard to figure out. But hey, world is about evolution, and good on Budweiser. I mean, for really jumping into the new age. I mean, this is the beer company with the Clydesdales and the wagon, right? So fast forward, great to see them, jumping into this new field.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of brands are sort of figuring out how to work it in. And right now, to my mind, it's still in that sort of hype phase where it's like, put it out, FOMO, get it. It's going to settle into a place potentially where it will become more sort of integrated into the mainstream. And, from a marketing perspective, this and the next couple of things that we're about to talk about, I think points to the fact that things have changed hugely. Like marketing is no longer about like that spot on, TV or that radio ad or, that brochure that you handed out at the trade show.
Talking about trade shows, I talk about Spotify and how I ran into them at a trade show here in Ottawa years ago before they became what they are. And I kept this card, and I've been thinking about, is there a way to put this card not just like in a photo album or in a shadow box? Like, is this an NFT-able thing?
I think so. My thoughts.
Anyway, it's just funny. It's just interesting. You wanted to talk about that today, so I pulled that out.
I love it. Yeah. So that's on the NFT front. And then from there, I know that we read this little piece where it talks specifically about hiring, but I think it goes a lot further than that. It's how the hiring is moving to the metaverse, and how sort of the implications of this becoming immersive environments, essentially, right? Like where you are able to meet with people and conduct interviews or whatever it is online. And now, as of a few weeks ago, when Facebook changed to Meta, I think for what it's worth, that put metaverse on the mainstream
on the map. Yeah.
Yes. Because suddenly everyone's like, wait, what is metaverse? Let me take it a little bit more seriously. It's no longer something for the gamers and that sort of thing. So what are your thoughts? Like, do you see the
Yes. The first thing that came to me when I really started to think about this, because it's actually not something that I'm thinking about frequently personally. It's just, but when I am thinking about it, the first thing I'm thinking about is like, what is in this environment, what is real and what is make believe? And it, brought me back to flashbacks of the Matrix movie, right? What's real and what's not. And the other thing is that from what I can tell, I think people still crave the face-to-face. And I think there is, and we were talking about this before too, about how there's this new way we're going to have to maybe adjust because of the digital nomads being comfortable in that area. But how do we trust that if you're hiring in this environment where it's avatar-like, how do we know what's really behind the avatar? But then when I thought about it a step further, where I could see great benefit for businesses is in the training element, right? Especially when it comes to things like physicians and surgeons and dentists and engineers. Like, what if we could create an environment to test out design and simulate an earthquake or a major flood and put in the algorithm, all of these things with the design of the bridge. I mean, I have no idea. This is all coding stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but wouldn't that be fantastic to be able to do that and simulate it rather than build it and have it collapse, right?
Yes. I think you're spot on. There's so many applications. Like we said, this thing talks about hiring, and that's truly valid. I think as we start to hire Gen Z, you've got a whole different level of behavior. So when people say, if the metaverse, I point them to my 10-year-old who spends most of her time on Roblox. And I'm like, there's no if around here. It is, it's like, it already is. Maybe we're not and to your point, I think it hinges on the trust, right? Like, I mean, we are at a sort of a generational divide. Like when I was 21 years old and I started with my first job, it was a totally different set of parameters about what I had to do, like show up in a suit and, learn how to have social skills face to face. And now that's a totally different set of things. And I think we do need to learn how to get in there. We do need to deploy it.
And we will adapt because, frankly, I hate to age myself, but I don't even think I'm that old, but we had a rotary phone at home. We had a party line. We did switch to touch tone, but now my most recent move, we don't have home phones. We are all on our own device, but like, look at how far we've come, and the speed of change is immense. So it basically, the way I see it is, I think some healthy skepticism is okay, but I think also realism and optimism are needed elements, and it's going to affect everything from marketing to day-to-day to training, and I think it's just be open to what
I think so.
is coming.
Be open to the possibility. I think anything can happen, and we're like, I know that we deal with a lot of small businesses, both your business and ours. And one of the cool things about small businesses is that we're miles ahead of like more sort of organizations that are larger and take a while to move, not as agile, right? So so I think for us it's important to be like, how does this break down for us? And even something like Microsoft Teams now has avatars on there. You could join a meeting as an avatar. Now that might be annoying to some people, but maybe some people feel more comfortable in that thing. So I think it also has that element of accessibility and inclusiveness for different types of ways of showing up in the world. And I'm here for it, Colleen.
Well, actually, come to think of it, right? That could be an interesting way to remove some of the biases in the hiring process. If you don't actually have the avatar, you're looking at the skills and the communication. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that till you just kind of bring that in. It just went, tweaked another way that could be very helpple, as opposed to hindrance.
I think so. And I think that if we just change the ways in which we are assessing it, where will the trust come from? The trust will come from delivering the things that you said you would deliver, perhaps. And maybe you need to make a clearer picture of expectations versus delivery. And I definitely think it's just a matter of better translation. Like, we just have to take the same skills that has brought us so far as humanity and then apply it to another way. I mean, the internet came up like suddenly and we all got really used to that.
Yeah, a little too accustomed. Now it's like, I don't know the answer to that. Google.
Don't say anything. It's going to start speaking to you.
See?
It's happened a few times where it'll chime in. Don't leave me out, ladies.